Hello and welcome to today's episode of Cooking Out and About. Today we're coming to you from Bella Cucina in Washington Street, just outside of Winchester Center. Now you might be thinking that we're going to be doing Italian food, but we already did a show on that, so we're going to be doing Irish food at an Italian place. Now you may be wondering how I'm going to tie that all in. Well, I'm Irish and I'm Italian, so why not cook Irish food at an Italian restaurant? The Irish have been known to be meat and potato eaters, so that's what we're going to do today. The first thing we're going to start off with is a tomato beef stew. First thing, going to need a crock pot. I'm sure I believe you can cook a stew on the stove over low heat, but what I've been doing, I got this crock pot I got a raffle thing a couple months ago, and I think it's just great. So you want to start off with, one medium onion, chopped up. You might want to go a little more fine than this, but I just kind of did it, with my knife. You can chop it in a chopper, and I've pre-cut it because I didn't want to cry on camera for everyone, because onions do tend to do that for you. Now, one way you can avoid getting the teary eyes when you're cutting an onion is to put your cutting board over the sink and have the water run over the cutting board while you cut your onion, and that'll cut down a lot on the teariness. And you can also, there are choppers, small choppers that you can chop them up in, but I found that I still get teary-eyed from that. All right, so we put our onions in. Make sure we get everything out. Okay. I don't have any really particular favorite kind of onion, just regular onion. Sometimes you might want to use the small, I just call them baby onions, and then you only have to cut them in half and not have to worry about as much with the teariness. Okay, next you're going to need some carrots. About 2 carrots cut into 1/4 inch thick slices. Now, like I'm always saying, cooking should be easy, so I just go ahead and I buy the pre-cut carrots, and you can just toss them in. They're usually ready to go. However much you want, good amount. It's up to you. If you like more carrots, put more carrots in. We'll put a good amount in. Okay. Next, after that, you're going to add a pound of potatoes, which is about 3 or 4 good-sized potatoes. And I've already cut those also. And what I've done is, just to help keep them from browning, I've put them in some water. And I've already cut them up. Again, a good amount, if you want more, if you want less. Whatever's really going to fit in your pot. Pile them right on top of the carrots. Next is the ground beef. And for that, you just want to coat each piece with some flour. Just do a few pieces at a time. Now, stew is really an easy thing to make, I've found. First time I had it was a couple years ago when I first moved down to Virginia. The family I was living with, the gentleman, cooked up a nice pot of stew, and he did not use a crock pot. And it was just so good. And like I said, I got the crock pot a few months ago. We've been trying a couple different ones. This is one I tried that I liked. Now you can add other vegetables too if you'd like, if you have a bigger crock pot. I think this one's about 3.5 quart crock pot. If you have a bigger pot, then you can add more vegetables. Pretty much what we're putting in is gonna fill it right to the rim. But if you have bigger ones, you can do bigger things. Sometimes you can cook a whole chicken in them. If you have smaller ones, you can do more melting type things or sauces. Okay, and there's the last of that. Okay. Then, since this is a tomato one, we're just going to take a can of stewed tomatoes, all ready to go. I'm just using the plain, that they're calling the original recipe. And then on top of that, you want to put a 1/4 cup of beef broth. Now what you can do for that is, I just use the bouillon cubes. You put one of the cubes in a cup of water, hot boiling water, and it'll dissolve it for you. Sometimes they call for, you can also use a dry red wine. Then you just cover it and turn it on. Now you want to put it on a low setting if you have all day, maybe you're going off to work. Put it on the low setting, and it'll cook for about 8 to 10 hours. Or maybe if you don't have time, like I'm going to be serving this for someone for lunch tomorrow, so what I'll do is I'll put it on about 8 in the morning on the high setting, and it'll cook it much faster. And let me just show you real quick. That's what it'll look like. Doesn't look like much now, but it will, I promise. Now, towards the end, about a half hour, an hour before you're ready to serve it, if you think your sauce is too thin, you can add some cornstarch. According to the directions, sometimes they tell you to add water, otherwise you can just add the cornstarch, and that'll thicken your sauce right up. Now, these are my carrots. All right, next thing we're going to do is truly an Irish traditional dinner that I know everyone in my Irish family seems to have. It's corned beef and cabbage. Now, there's actually two types of corned beef. The New England kind, or gray beef as it's called, and the New York kind, which is red beef. We're going to be using the gray beef today. Now, I've already put that in, and it's been boiling about 45 minutes now in the water. Now, the gray beef has a lot of salt in it, and this actually goes back to the days when people were shipping things by the ships, and we didn't have refrigeration, so they put the salt in there to preserve it, and they would actually put the beef in these big barrels, my cousin was telling me, and then they'd ship them off overseas or maybe to the United States, you know, depending where it was. So like I said, we put the beef in, and I don't know if you can see it, you can you put it in and you boil it with the cover on for about 45 minutes to an hour. After that time, you start to add the vegetables, and you want to add the hardest one first. Now, my grandaunt, she says that after it's boiled the first time, she takes the beef out, drains the water, and puts the beef in and more water in. But my cousin, who gave me this recipe, says he just keeps the water in there. And that adds the flavor, he says, and the salt, but you might not want the salt, as much of the salt, if you're watching your sodium intake. Okay, so you put the hardest vegetables in first, and again, we're going to use the carrots. My cousin also suggested turnips, but I could not find them in the store last night. Again, just the pre-cut carrots are fine. And then again, I'm going to add the potatoes, excuse me. And next, of course, to go with your corned beef, you need your cabbage. Now, when you go to the store and buy that, make sure you're not buying lettuce. It does look quite a bit the same, but you'll notice that cabbage is a lot harder than the lettuce, and it's more round and just solid. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut it up into eighths or quarters, whatever you prefer, depending on how many people that you are. What I'm using for my beef, too, is about just a little over 2 pounds. That should serve a good family, a good-sized family. And you just put it in. If there's any of the hard core part on your cabbage, just go cut it right out. This is also something called, I've heard, a New England boiled dinner. Obviously, because we're boiling it. Okay, you kind of get that all in, and you cover it back up for another hour, let it boil again. Now, when you'll know it's ready, you just test everything for tenderness, check the beef, and it'll be ready when, I said, after about the 2 hours. And what you're going to want to do after that is drain all the vegetables out, like in a colander or strainer, and take the corned beef out. And you want to slice it very thin, and you just serve the two together. And you want to serve it with a nice mustard. My cousin suggests a nice Golden's, maybe a Grey Poupon. You can go up to someone on the street and say, "Pardon me, do you have any Grey Poupon?" And they'll probably give you a very strange look, I'm sure. And it also will make a very nice sandwiches for the next day. All right, that's all we have for the two main meals. We'll be right back, and we're going to cover a nice Irish bread, and it is a special dessert.
I like the convenient work hours at UPS.
I could also balance my family life, my busy schedule, and the convenient work hours.
As a mother of two, working part-time at UPS has allowed me to spend most of my day with my kids.
Join the UPS team.
Call UPS at 508-441-3400.
Okay, now I believe that bread makes a meal. I'm always on the hunt when I go to a restaurant. I like to judge a restaurant by its quality of bread. is one of the first things I look at in a restaurant. And Irish bread can make any Irish meal even better. So what we're going to start for that, it's really simple actually. Start off just an egg and a cup of sugar and a tablespoon of butter, which we're just going to cream all this together. I'll tell you a funny story about my mixer here. It's brand new. I was making this earlier so I can show you what it will look like when it's finished, and my mixer broke. So I had to go out and buy a mixer, so we'll see. It's supposed to have all this great strong powers in it, so we'll see. So that mixture, once it's creamed, you're going to add a cup of milk. Now, I was actually in Ireland a few years ago, and we found that the Irish bread there was quite different than what I'm making, and this was more like their scones. And most afternoons, we would sit and go relax in a pub, and the pubs were a bit different than you'd find here, and they actually had like tea and scones in the afternoon. So this is a good breakfast treat, as well as a good bread to go with your meal. All right, now to our mixture, the liquidy mixture, we're going to add 3½ cups of flours and 4 teaspoons of baking powder, which I've already got pre-mixed, and just gradually add it all in. And this mixture does get very sticky and stiff, so it'll be a good test of my new mixer. Stop for a minute. Sometimes you need to scrape the sides of the bowls to get all that flour in. Hand mix it just a little bit. And you'll see it's getting very stiff. And it's breaking up, but it'll get back together. Now don't get too frustrated with your mixer. Here it's slowing down because it's so I'm just going to speed up the power a little. So this is a nice treat for breakfast, afternoon tea if you have friends over. All right, that looks good enough. If you have a lot of excess on the beaters, you can scrape it up. And that's about how it should look. Pretty stiff, pretty sticky. To that, we're going to add 1 cup of raisins. And stir that in. If you like more raisins, you can add more. Now, if you don't like raisins at all, add maybe a little less, and then just pick them out when you actually go to eat them, because I do believe that the raisins give something to the taste. Now, what we've always cooked this in is a frying pan, one that just has a handle that's not plastic or anything that can go in the oven. But you could also, if you just take a 9-inch cake pan, you could do that. And a couple years ago at Christmas, I was making bags for people with different treats in them, and I just put Irish bread that I had made into loaves, small loaves. So it is possible to do that too, if you don't have a 9-inch. I'm not sure, I have not tried it yet, I'm not sure, but you could probably make it even into, if you put them on a cookie sheet and make them into more of a scone. Now this is not a particularly soft bread, it's not a hard bread either, but it's not a real soft bread. So let's just spread it all out. Just have to be exceptionally careful when you take it out of the oven. I was telling the camera people here that I burned myself a couple times already today when I was cooking this earlier. So, right, so you just put it in, it's all spread in. You would just stick it in your oven. Now it's going to be 350 degrees for about 35 to 40 minutes. And you want it to be a deep golden brown. And you do the toothpick test, stick the toothpick in, see if it comes out clean. I did run into a little problem today where things weren't cooking as well as I wanted. But hopefully you'll have better luck. This is what it's going to look like when it's all done. So the nice deep golden brown It's cooked, like I said, it's not, it's not a real soft bread, but it does go, I suggest serving it straight from the oven, served with butter. We got a nice, about 15 thing of jelly this Christmas for family members, so we can taste all sorts of jellies. And I prefer strawberry jelly myself. Like I said, it tastes good with just butter too. All right, now after you've had your big meat and potato dinner, you're not going to want a real heavy dessert if you want dessert at all. So I want to suggest make a nice light dessert. That's going to be a pineapple cake. And to start that, we're just going to take an 8-ounce container of Cool Whip or any, dairy type topping. Now I have tried the non-fat Cool Whips, and they do taste very good. So you can do that. Take as much as you can. And to that, you're going to add 1 package of instant vanilla pudding. I'm just using the royal kind. Because, if you prefer Jell-O, that's fine. Again, maybe if you prefer the sugar-free, that's fine too. And to that, you're going to add, I'm using a 20-ounce can of crushed pineapples. You're going to add it with the juice. And you can see it's going to come out real nice. And you just mix it all up till everything gets good and mixed. Now this, because pineapples do not have fat in it, and the pudding mix actually before you make it into pudding doesn't have fat in it. And the Cool Whip, if you use the no fat free, this can ultimately be a fat-free dessert, because after we've mixed that all up, we're going to take an angel food cake and put it all on top of this. Now I made this one just out of a box, and they're a lot easier than they used to be. It used to be you had to use egg whites and this and that, but now most of the mixes you just add water. To make your own, I haven't tried that yet, but you need like 12 egg whites to make your own, and I haven't had any desire to really do that just yet. But you can also buy them in the supermarket. A lot of times they'll sell them already pre-made. I told someone I was making, the person actually that gave me the recipe, she's like, "You made your own angel food cake?" I'm like, "Well, from a mix." And she's like, "Oh, okay." She thought I made it from scratch. I'm like, no, I'm not that daring just yet. So you're just going to take it. I'm just using a plastic spatula because the angel food cake is very delicate. And spread it all around. And don't be shy with it. Now, if you're having guests coming over a bit, you can make this ahead of time. Stick it in the refrigerator. So it's very good, very cold. It's very good cold. And if you have any left over, just go ahead and eat it. Just plain, it's still good that way too, if you like pineapples. And angel food cake, like I said, has no fat in it either. Make sure you get some in the home. So it really can be a completely fat-free, low-calorie dessert. Hey. And that's just what it's going to look like when you're all done. Okay, well, Bob and Tony here, the owners of Bella Cucina, are going to show us how to make a chicken and broccoli and pasta dish. Because maybe there's sometimes, well, even though we're doing a meat and potato theme, maybe you don't, are into meat and potatoes, but you still want to get your protein and your starch and your vegetables. So they'll show us that chicken and broccoli, and we'll be right back to see how we make that.
So I add a 1/3 cup of Mountain Chevrolet wine. You can use any white wine, but this is what we use.
Now, if someone didn't like wine or couldn't drink wine for whatever reason, do you recommend something else?
If they didn't want to add, just don't add the wine.
Okay. That'll still be good.
It'd still be good because the sauce is made with the water from the ziti and the broccoli, and also with the Romano cheese.
Yeah, you may want to add a little bit more butter and a little bit more Romano cheese to it to give it that added flavor that you're going to not get from the wine.
Okay, so we added a 1/3 cup of wine, 1/3 of a cup of wine, and now we're going to use a tablespoon of pepper, tablespoon of salt, and a tablespoon of oregano.
Wow, you're right. Now it is smelling.
Oh, no.
Even better.
And this is a 1/3 of a table. These are 3 tablespoons of butter to get our sauce going. Just mix everything up. Would you like to do the honors with the
Oh,
garlic?
yes, thank you. Now this is pre-chopped stuff,
That's
right?
pre-chopped garlic.
Do you ever
Right.
use the
whole garlic?
whole garlic?
It's easier for us to use the
And how much was that we
chop.
added in?
That is 2 tablespoons of garlic. Okay, now while that's cooking, what we're going to do is we're going to take our ziti. We'll add our ziti right in there.
Okay.
Okay. And we're also going to add our broccoli right into the water.
Into the
with
water,
ziti,
okay. Now the ziti that you just put in, that's uncooked ziti? So
This
right?
was cooked. I
Okay.
cooked it ahead of time.
But normally you would put the uncooked ziti in?
Normally what you do is you cook your ziti till it boils. When it's just about ready, you add your broccoli.
Okay.
Okay? And that was a pound of ziti. This is a pound and a half of chopped broccoli.
Okay.
You just add it right in. I just need a little. We'll add our ziti right in there.
Okay.
Okay. And we're also going to add our broccoli right into the water.
Into the
with
water,
ziti,
okay.
okay?
Now the ziti that you just put in, that's uncooked ziti? So
This
right?
was cooked. I
Okay.
cooked it ahead of time.
But normally you would put the uncooked ziti in?
Normally what you do is you cook your ziti till it boils. When it's just about ready, you add your broccoli.
Okay.
Okay? And that was a pound of ziti. This is a pound and a half of chopped broccoli.
Okay.
You just add it right in. I just need a little. Yeah. And to make our sauce, we're going to take some of that water, and don't have to worry about if some of the ziti gets in, or some of the broccoli gets in. And we just mix it up. Okay. Bob, you want to drain the broccoli and ziti?
All right, let me out of your way.
Just move it right there. Okay. What we're going to do next is we're going to, Bob is going to put the broccoli and ziti that we cooked into a mixing bowl, and I'm going to add the chicken and wine and garlic and seasonings that we put together. Throw everything right in the mixing bowl. Okay, and the secret ingredients right now is a Romano cheese. That's going to give it a nice tangy flavor, and it's going to make the sauce. So, when you put the cheese right in, Bob.
About how much?
That's a half of a pound of grated Romano cheese.
Okay, we're back. And all our food is all cooked up and ready to eat. We just want to thank Tony and Bob once again, co-owners here at Bella Cucina, 358 Washington Street in Winchester, which is not too far off, 128 or 93, so come on down. They are open 7 days a week. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I'm Nancy Marie, and remember, no matter what you're cooking or where you're cooking, have fun doing it. We'll see you next time.